Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In the last video, I went ahead and I charged up this 12 volt battery pack all the way up to full. And what that meant is that I used a lithium iron phosphate charger that is supposed to charge it all the way up to 14.6, but for some reason it only charged it up to like not even 14.2. But I think they're all full anyway, because, well, let's just go ahead and check the voltages. All right, and just to recap, what we have is we have a 12 volt bank. All of these batteries are wired in parallel. They're all going into this 100 amp fuse block. And what we have is a 50 amp hour Ampere time battery, a 275 amp hour Sun Fun Kits battery, and a 100 amp hour UNOWIX battery. So let's go ahead and take the voltage and see what we have. Now if I take the voltage from the fuse block, that should be the same voltage as all the batteries. And what we have is 13.63. So if we do the voltage of this battery, it should be 13.63. This battery should be 13.63. And this battery should be 13.63. Oh, there it is. Okay. And that's what it means to be in parallel. All the voltages should be the same, and what you're adding up is the amp hours. So we have 275 amp hours here, plus 100 amp hours here, so that's 375, plus another 50. So that gives us a total of, you got it, 425 amp hours. But in this video, that's what we plan on testing. So what I'm going to be using for this discharge test is something that's really not appropriate for it. It's going to be this Cooler Master battery tester. And this is going to take a long time. I believe it has a discharge rate of 10 amps, but I could be wrong. It might be 5 amps. And when we're talking 425 total amp hours in this battery bank, this is going to take a long time. But the reason I'm doing that is I want to use this battery bank as like a supplemental source of power for my 24 volt system. And what I plan on using to pull the power from this bank to my 24 volt bank is like a 10 amp charger. So not only do I kind of want to see the total amp hours of this bank, I also kind of want to see what the discharge rates of each battery is while it's running. And also I want to know how much time it takes. So that way I know that once I start depleting from this bank, you know, roughly how much time I have of depletion of this bank before it's empty as well. So let's go ahead and hook up this, this tester and get it started. All right, so we're going to put the washer. And then let's put the connection on. Okay, and on the bottom of this, it shows which one's positive, which one's negative. So it looks like, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it shows a little V negative in and then V positive in right here. So negative here, positive here. And attach the positive here. Okay. And now we need to attach this over to here on the positive side. These ring terminals are a little big for this, but I'm sure they'll work just fine. All right, positive's tight. Let's go ahead and tighten the negative down. Now all we gotta do is plug in this into the wall outlet to give it some power. All right. Okay, so now that we got it hooked up, You can see that it's at 13.6. Let's go ahead and reset it back to 0. There we go. So everything is at 0 again. And we are going to go ahead and do, well, I would love to do a 10 amp discharge. So that's what we're going to try to do. And we're going to move it up so until the amperage gets to 10. Oh man, look at that. Boom, 10 amps. All right, and the voltage has already dropped down to 13.3, but that's very common. Because once there's a load on it, the amperage will drop down. But now that this is running at 10 amps, let's go ahead and check all the wiring and see what each battery is actually being pulled. As you can tell, the wiring is a disaster, but this is just all for testing, so I'm not worried about it. As long as everything, the wiring is all insulated and covered, so I believe that we're perfectly safe. And we're only doing 10 amps, so the discharge rate is not really going to make anything too hot. So like I said, we are pulling 10 amps. Let's go ahead and zero it out. And let's see what the main wire shows. Okay, so we'll say we'll just say 10.3. And then let's look at the 50 amp battery and see what it's pulling. And what I have is 1.55 amps from the 50 amp battery. And from the 275 amp hour battery, we're pulling 5.53. I don't know if you can see that, but there we go, 5.5, we'll say 5.55. And if my calculations are correct, this should be right around 3 amps. Yep, 3.33 amps from this one. So we'll say 3.33. All right, and also with this battery tester, you can see the voltage is already 13.1. The amps have gone down just a tad bit, but we're going to just keep it exactly the way I had it set before. It's already been running for 7 minutes. It's taking 131 watts, and that is about 1.23 amp hours. Okay, so I'm just going to let this run and run and run and run until the test is over. And we'll see what our battery capacity is for this battery bank. So I'll probably come back tomorrow morning, and we'll see where the test is at. So everyone have a good night. Okay, it's now 6:30 in the morning, and let's check out the battery tester to see what our numbers are so far. Okay, it looks like the tester says that our battery bank is at 12.9 volts. It's still running at almost 10 amps of discharge. Our total watt hour usage has been 1700 watt hours. And our total amp hour depletion is 131 amp hours. And the test has been running for 13 hours and 8 minutes. So yeah, the tester says that the bank is at 12.9. That's what it's running at. So let's go ahead and test each battery to make sure that they're all still in parallel, and make sure that they're all the same voltage. Okay, first let's test the fuse block. And it says 13.09. So this says 13.09, but the battery tester says 12.9. All right, the 50 amp battery, let's see what it's at. 13.11. The 100 amp battery is at 13.12. And the big 275 amp battery is at 13.18. So not bad when it comes to deviation of the voltage, but I have a feeling as the test goes on, the voltage is going to get farther and farther apart. But we'll just have to see. All right, so I'm going to let this continue to run. When I get home from work is the next time I'll be checking it, and that's probably, I don't know, around 5:30 p.m. So in about 11 hours, I'll check it again. Okay, we're back everyone. It is now 5:30 p.m. So it's been 11 hours since the last time I checked this. So let's see what our voltage is on our battery tester, and then we'll go ahead and check the individual voltages of the batteries. Okay, our voltage on our battery tester is now at 12.7, and you can see that it's still running at right at 10 amps. Our used up watt hours is 3,109. That means that we've used up 240 amp hours so far. So I would say we're a little over halfway done with this test. And it's been 24 hours and 8 minutes. All right, touching all the wires, there are no wires that are warm at all. Everything is cool to the touch. Okay, so the tester says 12.7 volts. Our 50 amp battery, our 50 amp hour battery is 12.98. Our 275 amp battery is 13.04, and our 100 amp hour battery is 13.01. And the voltage coming straight from the fuse block is 12.97. All right, let's go ahead and check the amperages of everything. Zero it out. The amperage coming from the fuse block to the battery tester is 10.2524. The amperage coming from the 50 amp hour ampere time battery is, looks like 0.9 amps. The amps coming from the 275 amp hour SunFun Kits battery is 6.3 amps. And the amps coming from the 100 amp hour UNOWIX battery is 3.24 amps. So it looks like this is taking the most. This one's second, and then this one is barely taking anything. All right, so those are the numbers at about the 55%, 60% point of this test. And I'm not going to check it again until tomorrow morning. So that'll probably be, I don't know, 6:30, 7:30, something like that. And hopefully we'll be getting closer to being done at that point. Okay, good morning everyone. It is now 7:30 the next day. So I believe it has been 13 hours since the last time I checked on these batteries. So let's check out the voltages. All right, the battery tester shows that it is running at 12.4 volts, and it's still running at 10 amps. The watt hours is 4,483.83. That equals out to about 381 amp hours. And this test has been running for 38 hours and 10 minutes and 55 seconds. And now let's look at the individual voltages of the batteries. The 50 amp ampere time battery, the voltage is 12.6. The 100 amp battery from UNOWIX is 12.62. And the 275 amp hour from SunFun Kits is 12.67. So they are relatively very close still. So all three of these batteries are relatively close in voltage, which is actually pretty nice. I thought that they would start to really stray once we got down, into the mid 12 volt range. The total amp hours used up so far has been 381. So this is only a 425 amp bank. So our test should be finishing up here, probably in, I don't know, in a few hours. So I'll come back once it's getting closer. All right, everyone, now it is 9:30 a.m. So it's been a couple hours since the last time I checked it. So let's see what the voltages are. Okay, our tester is showing 12.2 volts, still running at 10 amps. It looks like we have 401 amp hours used up. So out of this 425 amp hour bank in total, we've used up 400 amps of it, right there. And yeah, our voltage is at 12.2, but let's go ahead and check the voltages of all the batteries to see where they're at. Okay, the tester says 12.2. Let's see what the fuse block shows. Fuse block is at 12.44. Let's see, the 50 amp battery is at 12.46. The voltage of the 100 amp battery is 12.47. And the big 275 amp battery is at 12.54. So this one has more voltage in it. So let's see what the amperage draw. Amperage draw of the 50 amp battery is only a half an amp, 0.5. Then the 100 amp battery is 1.25. So these ones are barely drawing anything. So everything is coming from this big battery right now. Yeah, 8.55 amps being pulled from the big battery. Which makes sense because this one hits the highest voltage. I feel like this test is getting pretty close to being done. So I'm going to come back in another half hour and see where we're at. All right, everyone, it is 10 after 11. And I hope you can see all this, but our voltage on our tester is now 11.1. And I noticed that the amperage on our SunFun kits on the app is bouncing between 8.6 amps and 7.5 amps. So let's check the voltages first. Actually, let's check the amperages. The 50 amp battery is still pulling one. Oh, there it goes. Oh, it looks like this one's dying because it's pulling and then it dies and then it pulls and it dies. So it's like the BMS is like turning off and on this battery. So I have a feeling this one is going downhill. Let's check out this one. This one is doing the same thing. It's not pulling anything, and then it wakes back up, and then it tries to pull some more. Yeah, look at that. Oh, you can't even see it. See, look at that. The battery's dead, and then the BMS wakes back up because it still is pulling getting voltage, and then it dies again. So this battery and the Ampere time battery are both they're struggling. They're waking up, and then the BMS is shutting off again, and then they wake up, and the BMS is shutting off again. And then this battery is still constantly just pulling. It's pulling between the two, so it's trying to compensate. So it's pulling 8.6, and then it pulls 6.7, and then it goes right back up to 8.6. So these batteries are all on the verge of dying. All right, let's check our voltages, and then I think I'm going to call it quits. Voltage of this battery, the 50 amp battery, is 11.3, but you can tell that the BMS is actually shutting it off. The 100 amp battery is 11.3, and then the big 275 amp battery is 11.4. And let's see what our tester shows. Our tester shows 11 volts, still pulling 10 amps. We've pulled 418 amp hours from this bank. So that is pretty good. And the time it took was 41 hours and 54 minutes. I truly think that this bank could run for 42 consecutive hours before it completely depletes itself. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the test here. All right, I just turned off the tester. It'll probably run for a little bit longer just to cool down. And you can see the final results. 41 hours, 55 minutes, total run time. Total amp hours was 418 amp hours. All right, well, it's really great to know that this bank performed exactly the way I was hoping that it would. It was pulling the appropriate amount of energy from each battery, dependent on its size and its relative voltage. And I got almost 420 amp hours out of this bank of just completely different batteries. So I'm going to go ahead and charge this thing back up, and we'll see the total capacity of the charge. Okay, now we have our battery bank charging back up. It's charging with a 30 amp charger, and I've got it hooked to this shunt right here. It's the LNEX color shunt, and you can see that the amp hours are starting to go up. Let's go ahead and pull this up so we can see it better. You can see that there's 29.4 amps going into the system. The voltage is 12.1. So we're putting in 358 watts. And with the batteries all completely empty right now, let's go ahead and just kind of check out what the amperage is going to each battery. All right, so the small battery, the 50 amp, it's getting 5.7 amps of charge. The 100 amp hour UNOWIX battery is getting 5.8, and then the big 275 amp hour battery is getting 18.56. Once this is fully charged up, I'm going to give you the total capacity of the battery bank, and then maybe we'll start actually putting it into production. All right, it is now the next day, and I let this battery bank charge up all the way, and look what it ended at. Exactly 425 amp hours. And that is the total capacity of all three of those batteries combined. You couldn't have planned that any better. So I think I'm done with the discharging and the charging of this set. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually plug in an inverter onto this and plug in a 24 volt charger, and I'm going to charge up my other system with this battery pack, and I'm going to go ahead and measure the losses that I get from the whole system. So that'll be in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and you all have a good night. Bye-bye.